The human boarding party cut through the Zilithian ship's hull like angry wolves. Commander Rachel Torres led 20 Marines through the breach, their weapons ready and their faces set in cold determination. Behind them came Captain Murphy and Dr. Barnes, followed by more soldiers from the other ships. The Zilithians had never seen anything like it. Human soldiers moved through their ship with a fury that defied all military logic. They didn't care about taking cover or following proper assault tactics. They just advanced straight toward wherever the children were being held, destroying everything in their path. In the escape pod bay, Zektar Voss heard the sound of human boots getting closer. He still had his weapon pointed at Emma Phillips, but the 8-year-old girl wasn't backing down. The other children stood behind her, holding hands and trying to be brave. "Tell your soldiers to stop," Zektar demanded, "or I will kill all the specimens." Emma looked up at the alien commander with steady eyes. "No, you won't," she said, "because you're scared now. You finally understand what you did wrong." "I fear nothing from primitive humans," Zektar said, but his voice shook as he spoke. Emma smiled. "You should be scared. You took our parents' children. That's the worst thing you could possibly do." The escape bay doors exploded inward. Commander Torres rolled through the smoke with her rifle raised. Behind her came Captain Murphy and 6 other Marines. They saw the children clustered together and the alien commander threatening them with his weapon. "Let them go," Murphy said. His voice was quiet and calm, but Emma could hear the anger underneath it like fire ready to explode. Zektar backed toward the escape pods, keeping his weapon aimed at the children. "Stay back, or the specimens die." Murphy took a step forward. Wrong choice of words. What happened next took less than 3 seconds. Rachel Torres put a bullet through Zektar's weapon hand while Murphy dove toward the children. Dr. Barnes grabbed the nearest kids and pulled them to safety behind an overturned control panel. The other Marines surrounded the remaining Zilithian guards. Emma found herself in Captain Murphy's arms. She looked up at his scarred face and saw something that made her feel safe for the first time in a week. "Are you my dad?" she asked. Murphy's hard expression softened. "No, sweetheart, but I'm going to get you back to him." The rescue was swift and efficient. The human soldiers had studied the ship's layout during their assault and knew exactly where to find the children. Within minutes, all 43 kids were gathered in the escape bay, being checked by Dr. Barnes and the medical team. Most of the children were scared, but unhurt. The aliens had kept them fed and healthy because they needed them in good condition for whatever terrible purpose they had planned. Emma hugged Ryan and Mia and Danny, relieved that all her friends were safe. "What happens now?" Danny asked. Commander Torres looked at the captured Zilithian guards with cold eyes. "Now we find out where these things came from," she said. "And we make sure they never do this again." But even as the children were being evacuated to the human ships, more messages were racing across space. The news of the child kidnapping had spread to every human colony and outpost in the galaxy. The response was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. On Earth, the president addressed an emergency session of the Human Council. "An alien empire has attacked our children," she said. "This act of aggression cannot stand. I am authorizing full military mobilization until every threat to human children has been eliminated." On Mars, the industrial colonies stopped producing civilian goods and began manufacturing weapons and warships. On the mining stations in the asteroid belt, workers volunteered to crew military vessels. On the farming worlds of the Outer Rim, colonists armed their cargo ships and prepared for war. The Zilithian Empire had thought they were taking children from one small colony. They had actually declared war on the entire human species. 3 days later, Jake and Lisa Phillips held their daughter Emma in their arms on the deck of the USS Valiant. The little girl looked tired and thin, but she was alive and unhurt. Around them, Other parents were reuniting with their children in scenes of joy and relief that brought tears to the eyes of hardened soldiers. "I knew you would come for me," Emma told her father. "I never stopped believing it." Jake held her tight and tried not to cry. "We'll never let anyone take you away again," he promised. But the rescue was only the beginning. Admiral Patricia Kane stood in the command center, on Earth, looking at reports from across human space. In just 1 week, humanity had assembled the largest military force in its history. "How many ships do we have ready for deployment?" she asked her aide. 2,437 vessels, Admiral," came the reply. "Everything, from battleships to armed cargo haulers. More are joining the fleet every hour." Patricia nodded. The Zilithians had made their choice when they took human children. Now humanity would show them the consequences of that choice. The war that followed was not really a war at all. It was an extermination. Human fleets hunted down every Zilithian, ship and station they could find. When Zilithian leaders tried to negotiate, human diplomats delivered a simple message: "You should not have touched our children." The Zilithian Empire had conquered 47 different species across the galaxy. They had never encountered a race like humans. Other species fought for territory or resources or ideology. Humans fought for something more basic and more powerful. They fought for their children. 6 months later, the last Zilithian military base surrendered to a combined human fleet. Commander Zektar Voss, recovered from his injuries, sat in a prison cell on Earth. He had spent his time trying to understand what had happened to his empire. A human psychologist came to interview him one day. Dr. Lisa Chen was small and calm, very different from the angry soldiers who had captured him. "Why?" Zektar asked her. "Why did your species destroy my entire civilization over 43 specimens? The loss was minimal compared to your total population." Dr. Chen studied him with curious eyes. "You really don't understand, do you?" "No," Zektar said. "It makes no logical sense. You lost thousands of soldiers and hundreds of ships. The cost was far greater than the value of what was taken." Dr. Chen leaned forward in her chair. "That's where you're wrong," she said. "You didn't take 43 children. You took something much more important than that." "What?" Zektar asked. "You took our future," Dr. Chen said. "Every human child represents the hope and dreams of their parents. When you steal a child, you steal everything that child might become. You steal the grandchildren they might have. You steal the discoveries they might make and the love they might share. You don't just hurt the parents. You hurt all of humanity." She stood up to leave. "Your species sees children as resources to be used. Our species sees children as the most precious thing in the universe. That's why you lost." Zektar sat alone, in his cell after she left, finally beginning to understand. The Zilithians had thought they were harvesting raw materials from a primitive species. Instead, they had attacked the one thing that humans valued more than their own lives. Years passed. The human fleet returned home to parades and celebrations. The children who had been rescued grew up and had children of their own. Emma Phillips became a teacher, telling her students about the importance of courage and never giving up hope. The galaxy learned new rules about dealing with humanity. Humans could be traded with, reasoned with, even fought with on equal terms. But harm their children and humanity became something else entirely, something unstoppable and unforgiving. On New Eden, Jake Phillips worked in his garden while his granddaughter played in the same fields where Emma had once chased butterflies. The little girl had her grandmother's brown hair and her grandfather's green eyes. Sometimes Jake would look up at the sky and remember the silver ships that had taken his daughter away. But those ships were gone now, along with the empire that had sent them. The galaxy was safer for human children because 43 kids had been brave enough to fight back and because their parents had loved them enough to burn down the stars to get them home. The child in the garden threw a stone at a tree, just like her mother had taught her. The sharp crack of stone against bark echoed across the peaceful fields. It was a sound that reminded Jake of many things, of his daughter's courage, of his wife's strength, and of the promise that no one would ever take their children away again. Emma's granddaughter picked up another stone and threw it even harder. She was learning to be strong, just like all human children learn to be strong. And somewhere in the vastness of space, any species that might think about threatening human families would remember the fate of the Zilithian Empire. They had learned too late that there are some lines that should never be crossed. The most important of those lines was simple and absolute: you do not touch human children. The galaxy would remember that lesson for a very long time. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance and watched the alien ship come down through Earth's sky. The ship was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. Its blue crystal hull caught the sunlight and made the clouds around it glow with strange light. Jake had seen many things in his 30 years of military service, but nothing like this. "Sir, they want to land at the United Nations building," said Lieutenant Kate Williams from her station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. Everyone was scared. 3 months ago, humans had learned they were not alone in the universe. Now the aliens were here, and nobody knew what they wanted. Jake nodded and kept watching the alien ship. It moved without sound, floating down like a giant metal bird. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations, checking weapons and shields. The USS Defiance was Earth's best warship, but compared to the alien vessel, it looked like a toy. "All ships maintain position," Jake said into his radio. "Do not fire unless fired upon." Around Earth, 50 human warships waited in space. They were ready to fight, but Jake hoped it would not come to that. The alien ship landed in New York with a soft thud that shook buildings for miles around. People on the streets stopped and stared up at the massive crystal structure that now sat in the middle of their city. News cameras from around the world focused on the ship as a door opened in its side. 3 aliens walked out. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes. They wore long robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. The leader carried a metal staff that hummed with energy. People backed away as the aliens walked toward the United Nations building. Inside the UN Assembly Hall, world leaders waited. President John Mitchell sat with his hands folded, trying to look calm. Next to him, Secretary General Maria Rodriguez checked her notes one more time. General Lisa Barnes, head of Earth's military, watched the doors with hard eyes. She did not trust these aliens. The aliens entered the hall without making a sound. Their feet did not seem to touch the ground. The leader stepped forward and touched his staff to the floor. A device on his chest began to glow, and when he spoke, his words came out in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Zarketh of the Hegemony," the alien said. His voice was cold and empty. "I speak for the Galactic Council, rulers of this galaxy. We have come to inform you of your new duties as a member species." Maria Rodriguez stood up slowly. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. We hoped this first meeting would be about friendship and trade between our peoples." Zarketh looked at her with all 4 eyes. His mouth moved in what might have been a smile, but it held no warmth. "There is no friendship between the Council and lesser species. There is only order. You will listen to our terms." The alien touched his staff to the floor again. A hologram appeared in the air, showing a list of demands written in many languages. Maria felt her blood turn cold as she read the words. "By the ancient laws of the Galactic Council," Zarketh continued, "all newly discovered species must pay tribute to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. This has been our way for 10,000 years. You will provide 20% of your yearly resources to the Council." President Mitchell leaned forward. "What kind of resources?" "Metals, energy, sources, food, and biological specimens," Zarketh replied. "Your brightest minds, strongest warriors, and most diverse genetic samples, 10,000 humans each year, will come with us to serve the Council's needs." The hall erupted in angry shouts. Leaders from around the world stood up, their faces red with rage. General Barnes put her hand on her weapon, but Maria waved for calm. "You're talking about slavery," Maria said, her voice shaking with anger. "We will never agree to give you our people." Zarketh's 4 eyes focused on her like a hunter looking at prey. "This is not a request. This is a command. You have 30 of your days to prepare the first tribute shipment. The Council has spoken." "And if we refuse?" President Mitchell asked, standing up to face the alien. Zarketh's smile grew wider, showing teeth like broken glass. "Then you will join the countless species that chose death over wisdom. Your planet will be cleansed of life, and your system will become Council property. We have done this many times before." The alien reached into his robes and pulled out a metal tablet. He placed it on the table in front of Maria. "This contains the full tribute requirements. Study it well. We will return in 30 days for your answer." The 3 aliens turned and walked out of the hall as silently as they had entered. Through the windows, the humans watched their ship rise into the sky and disappear among the stars. The hall remained quiet for a long moment. Maria picked up the metal tablet with shaking hands. The list of demands filled 30 pages: uranium, gold, platinum, oil, grain, water. And at the end, the most horrible demand of all: detailed requirements for the humans they wanted: scientists, soldiers, children with rare genetic markers. The aliens had studied humanity well. "This is madness," said the British Prime Minister, his face pale. "They want everything: our resources, our people, our freedom." General Barnes was the first to speak what everyone was thinking. "We need to call an emergency meeting of all military commanders, now." "Military action?" Maria shook her head. "Against aliens who can travel between stars? They probably have weapons we can't even imagine." "Maybe," Barnes replied, her jaw set with determination. "But slavery is not living. If we're going to die, we should die fighting." President Mitchell nodded slowly. "The general is right. We can't just hand over our people. What kind of world would we leave for our children?" Over the next few hours, as news of the alien demands spread around Earth, the reaction was swift and angry. Protests filled the streets of major cities. Military bases went to high alert. Scientists worked around the clock to analyze the alien technology they had briefly observed. In the Colorado Mountains, Dr. Alex Turner studied video recordings of the alien ship. His team of engineers and physicists looked for any weakness they could find. The ship's hull seemed to be made of some kind of living crystal. Its weapons were completely unknown. But Turner noticed something interesting. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a screen. "When their ship landed, our satellites detected electromagnetic signals. They're using some kind of quantum communication system. If we can understand how it works, maybe we can find a way to disrupt it." Meanwhile, in military command centers around the world, generals and admirals planned for the impossible. How do you fight an enemy that can cross the galaxy in days? How do you defend against weapons that could destroy cities? Admiral Morrison returned to his ship with new orders. Earth's entire space fleet was to prepare for war. Every weapon would be upgraded. Every ship would be armed with humanity's most powerful missiles and energy beams. It might not be enough, but they would try. As the sun set over Earth, Jake Morrison stood on his bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere up there, the aliens were planning humanity's enslavement. But humans had never been good at following orders from bullies. They had fought wars for freedom before, and they would fight again. The 30-day countdown had begun. Earth would use every minute to prepare for the fight of their lives. Deep inside the Colorado mountains, Dr. Alex Turner had not slept for 3 days. His eyes were red and his hands shook from too much coffee, but he could not stop working. Around him, the brightest minds on Earth worked to solve an impossible problem. How do you fight aliens with technology thousands of years ahead of your own? The underground facility buzzed with activity day and night. Engineers built new weapons while scientists studied every piece of data they had about the alien ship. Computer experts tried to break the alien codes they had recorded. Everyone knew they had only 27 days left before the aliens returned. "Show me the shield analysis again," Turner said to Dr. Ben Carter, his chief engineer. Carter pulled up a hologram that showed the alien ship surrounded by a blue energy field. "Their shields work on a rotating frequency," Carter explained, pointing to the data streams. "Every few seconds, the energy pattern changes. Our missiles and lasers can't get through because they adjust too fast." Turner studied the information carefully. "But if we could predict the frequency changes, we might be able to time our attacks perfectly." "What about their communication system?" Carter smiled for the first time in days. "That's where it gets interesting. We recorded their quantum signals when they talked to their home base. The whole alien fleet uses the same communication network. If we could get into that network, we could plant a virus," Turner finished, "something that would spread to every ship at once." In another part of the facility, Colonel Amy Foster worked with a team of military planners. They had maps of the solar system spread across dozens of tables, showing where Earth's defenses were positioned. It did not look good. "We have 52 combat ships," Foster said to Admiral Morrison, who had come down from orbit for the meeting. "The aliens showed us just one ship, but our deep space scanners have detected at least 30 more heading this way." Morrison studied the tactical displays. Each red dot represented an alien warship larger than anything in Earth's fleet. "What about our new weapons? Are they ready?" "The quantum torpedoes are still being tested," Foster replied. "Dr. Carter thinks they can phase through alien shields, but we won't know for sure until we try them in battle. The kinetic bombardment system is working, but it takes hours to accelerate asteroids to attack speed." Morrison nodded grimly. The kinetic system was humanity's most powerful weapon, giant magnetic launchers that could throw space rocks at enemy ships faster than bullets. But the aliens would not wait around to be hit. In Washington, President Mitchell met with leaders from around the world through secure video links. The mood was dark. Most countries had agreed to work together, but some wanted to surrender too, the aliens, rather than fight. "The Chinese are willing to give the aliens what they want," reported the Secretary of Defense. "They think 10,000 people is a small price to pay to save the rest of humanity." Mitchell slammed his hand on the table. 10,000 people this year. What about next year? What happens when the aliens decide they want more?" On the other side of the world, General Lisa Barnes toured Earth's newest military facility. Hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean, the underwater base contained humanity's most secret project. Rows of sleek black ships hung in dry docks, invisible to most forms of detection. "The Ghost Squadron is almost ready," reported Commander Steve Parker, the project leader. "These stealth ships can get close to alien vessels without being seen. Each one carries enough firepower to cripple an enemy warship." Barnes walked along the dock, examining the strange ships. Their hulls were covered in a material that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible even up close. "How many do we have?" 15 ships, with crews trained for suicide missions if necessary," Parker replied. "We all know this is probably a one-way trip." Barnes put her hand on Parker's shoulder. "The whole war might be a one-way trip, but if we're going down, we're taking some of them with us." Back in Colorado, Turner made a breakthrough that would change everything. While studying the alien communication signals, he discovered something the aliens probably did not know humans could detect. Their quantum network had a hidden back door, a way for their command ships to take control of the entire fleet in an emergency. "If we can hack into one of their command ships, we can send orders to their entire fleet," Turner explained to the assembled military leaders. "We could turn their own ships against each other." The plan that emerged was insane and desperate, but it was humanity's best hope. Earth's forces would launch coordinated attacks on multiple alien strongholds across the galaxy. While the main fleet engaged the aliens near Earth, stealth ships would plant computer viruses in alien command centers light years away. "It has never been done before, admitted Turner when Morrison asked about their chances. No species has ever attacked the Galactic Council on multiple fronts simultaneously. They won't expect it. Captain Rachel Green led one of the teams preparing for the deep space missions. Her job was to take a small fleet of ships to an alien base 3 star systems away and plant a virus in their computers. The journey would take 2 weeks each way, and they might arrive to find thousands of alien warships waiting for them. "We launch in 48 hours, Green told her crew. "Our target is the Kepler 442 system. Intelligence reports say it's a major alien supply depot with minimal defenses. If we can take out their communication hub, it will blind their forces across 3 sectors. The crew members looked nervous but determined. They were all volunteers, who knew they probably would not come home. But they also knew that their mission could save billions of lives on Earth. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, workers raced to complete humanity's last line of defense. Giant laser cannons and missile batteries were being carved into the lunar surface. If the aliens got past Earth's fleet, the moon would become a fortress protecting the home world. Dr. Susan Walsh, the project coordinator, watched as the final weapons came online. "How long can we hold out if they break through?" she asked the military engineer beside her. "Maybe 6 hours," he replied honestly. "These weapons are powerful, but the aliens have been conquering planets for thousands of years. They know how to break planetary defenses." With 20 days left before the alien deadline, Earth received an unexpected message. A small alien ship approached the outer solar system, broadcasting on human radio frequencies. But this ship was different. It was damaged and asking for help. Admiral Morrison ordered the ship brought to a secure facility on Mars. Inside, they found 3 aliens who looked nothing like the Council representatives. These creatures were small and furry, with large eyes that seemed to hold great sadness. "We are Murphons," their leader said through a translation device. "We escaped from a Council slave world. We came to warn you. Do not surrender. The Council lies. Species that give tribute are not left in peace. They are slowly consumed until nothing remains." The Murphon's words sent chills through the human leadership. "How many species has the Council destroyed?" President Mitchell asked during an emergency meeting. "Hundreds," the alien replied. "My people have been slaves for 600 years. Every year, the Council takes more of us. They say it is necessary for galactic peace, but it is only greed." The Murphon refugees also brought valuable intelligence. They knew the locations of Council bases, the types of weapons the aliens used, and most importantly, they knew the Council's greatest weakness. They had grown complacent after thousands of years of easy victories. "No species has ever fought back successfully," the Murphon leader explained. "The Council expects you to either surrender or fight a defensive war around your home world. They will not expect attacks on their own territory." With this new information, Turner and his team made final adjustments to their battle plan. Instead of 17 targets, they would hit 23 alien bases simultaneously. It would stretch human forces to the breaking point, but it might also catch the Council completely off guard. "Remember," Turner told the assembled ship captains, "on the eve of their departure, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every enslaved species in the galaxy. If we succeed, it could start a rebellion that brings down the Council forever." As the final preparations were completed, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked out at Earth's fleet. 200 ships of various sizes hung in space around him, ready for battle. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, but against the vast Galactic Council, it seemed pathetically small. "All ships report ready for departure," announced his communications officer. Around the solar system, other fleets were preparing to jump to distant stars. The most dangerous military operation in human history was about to begin. Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication system. "People of Earth's fleet," he said, his voice carried to every ship, "today we make history. Today we show the galaxy that humanity will never bow to tyrants. Whatever happens, our children will know that we stood up when it mattered. The countdown began. In 12 hours, Earth's forces would scatter across the galaxy to begin their impossible war against an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years, found themselves fighting for their lives. On the Council home, WW 6 months after humanity's first strike against the Galactic Council, the war had spread across half the galaxy. What started as a desperate fight for Earth's freedom had become something much larger, a galactic revolution that threatened to tear apart an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years. Captain Helen Ross stood on the bridge of the UES Courage and watched in horror as the Council's newest weapon fired on the human colony of New Geneva. The planet had been home to 3 million people, farmers, scientists, and their families who had traveled light years from Earth to build a new life among the stars. The weapon that destroyed them was unlike anything humanity had seen before. It did not explode the planet or crack its crust. Instead, it turned the entire surface into glass in a matter of seconds. Every living thing, every building, every trace of human presence was simply vaporized and then crystallized into a smooth, dead surface that reflected the system's star like a mirror. "How is this possible?" Ross whispered, staring at the tactical display that showed where New Geneva had been. Her ship's sensors could barely process what they were seeing. A planet-sized ball of glass floating in space, perfectly smooth and completely lifeless. "The weapon appears to use some kind of quantum field effect," reported her science officer, Lieutenant James Murphy. His voice shook as he read the data. "It simultaneously breaks down all molecular bonds across the entire planetary surface and then rebuilds them as silicon crystal. The energy required would be enormous." Ross felt sick to her stomach. The Council was no longer just fighting to maintain their empire. They were committing genocide on a scale that defied comprehension. And this was only the beginning. Admiral Morrison received the news aboard his flagship, now renamed the UES Vengeance after being rebuilt following the Battle of Kepler 442. His face went pale as he watched the recorded footage of New Geneva's destruction. "They've crossed a line," Morrison said to his assembled officers. "This isn't about tribute anymore. They mean to exterminate our entire species." The Council's escalation had been swift and brutal. After the shock of humanity's coordinated attacks wore off, Grand Admiral Thexmore had authorized the use of what the aliens called cleansing weapons, technologies so destructive that they had been banned from use even against the most stubborn rebel species. But the human attacks had done more than just damage Council bases. They had inspired other enslaved species to rebel. The Zephyrians, enslaved for 6 centuries, had liberated their home system using weapons stolen from a Council armory. The aquatic Mirfons had destroyed tribute collection facilities across 3 sectors. Even species that had been broken by centuries of servitude were beginning to fight back. Thexmore's response was to make an example that would terrify both humans and potential rebels. New Geneva was chosen specifically because it was a peaceful farming world with no military value. Its destruction was meant to send a message: surrender or watch your people die. "The Council has broadcast new terms across all human settlements," Morrison continued, his voice tight with controlled rage. "Complete surrender within 30 standard days, or they'll use the cleansing weapons on every human world outside the Sol system." In the depths of Earth's hidden military bases, Dr. Alex Turner worked frantically on humanity's response to the Council's escalation. The aliens had forced him to consider options that went against everything he believed in. The device on the table before him was humanity's greatest secret, a weapon that could destabilize a star and cause it to go supernova. "Project Ragnarok is ready for deployment," Turner announced to the Emergency War Council. His face was drawn and exhausted. He had not slept in 3 days, consumed by the horrible mathematics of stellar destruction. President Mitchell stared. at the weapon schematics with a mixture of fascination and revulsion. This device can actually destroy an entire star system? The quantum cascade effect will cause the target star to collapse and then explode, Turner explained. Everything within 10 light years will be sterilized. Planets, space stations, ship, fleets, nothing will survive. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The weapon Turner had created was not just a gun pointed at the Council. It was a sword hanging over the head of galactic civilization itself. General Lisa Barnes, now Earth's overall military commander, spoke first. If we use this weapon, we become mass murderers on a scale that makes the Council look restrained. The Council has already crossed that line, countered Secretary of Defense William Clark. They destroyed New Geneva without warning, without even demanding surrender first. They mean to exterminate us regardless of what we do. The debate raged for hours. Some argued that using such a weapon would turn the galaxy against humanity forever. Others pointed out that the Council had shown no mercy and deserved none in return. President Mitchell listened to all sides before making the most difficult decision in human history. "Deploy Ragnarok," Mitchell ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Target the hegemony home system. If the Council wants to play with weapons of extinction, we'll show them what humans can do when we get serious about war." The hegemony system was the beating heart of the Galactic Council. Its twin stars supported dozens of worlds and orbital habitats housing over 20 trillion beings. It was the center of galactic government, the location of the Council's ancient archives, and the symbol of their eternal dominance. Commander Todd Wilson piloted the stealth ship carrying the Ragnarok device through the system's outer defenses. His ship was one of the new generation of human vessels, so advanced that even Council sensors could not detect it. But Wilson knew that once he deployed the weapon, there would be no hiding from what came next. "Ragnarok deployment in T-10 minutes, Wilson reported to Earth Command. Around him, his crew worked in grim silence. They all understood what they were about to do. 20 trillion beings would die in the next hour, and they would be the ones who killed them. The quantum cascade device was smaller than Wilson had expected, just a metal sphere about the size of a basketball. It seemed impossible that something so small could destroy an entire star system, but Turner's mathematics were flawless. Once activated, the device would create a chain reaction that could not be stopped. "Device deployed," Wilson announced as his ship accelerated toward the system's edge. "Cascade initiation in 10 minutes and counting." Across the galaxy, every species with the technology to detect stellar anomalies watched their instruments with growing alarm. The energy readings coming from the hegemony system were unlike anything in recorded history. Stars simply did not behave the way the sensors were indicating. Grand Admiral Thexmore was in his command center on Hegemony Prime when the first warnings came in. His science staff reported impossible energy readings from both of the system's stars. Nuclear fires that had burned steadily for billions of years were suddenly becoming unstable. "What is causing this?" Thexmore demanded, his crystalline form pulsing with agitated light. "Stars do not simply begin to collapse without cause." "Sir, we're detecting quantum cascade effects in both stellar cores," reported his chief scientist. "Someone has deployed a stellar destabilization weapon. The stars will go supernova within minutes." Thexmore felt something he had not experienced in his 3,000-year life: genuine terror. How is this possible? Such weapons are theoretical. The energy requirements alone should make them impossible to build. "The humans, sir," whispered his aide. "This must be their response to the cleansing weapons." Thexmore had just enough time to send one final message to the Council fleet scattered across the galaxy. "Emergency Protocol 7, he transmitted. "The humans have superweapons. Withdraw all forces to defensive positions immediately." The twin supernovas that consumed the hegemony system were visible from thousands of light years away. The combined energy output was so intense that it temporarily disrupted faster-than-light communications across 3 galactic sectors. In a matter of minutes, the center of galactic civilization was reduced to an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. The psychological effect of Ragnarok's deployment was even more devastating than its physical destruction. For 10,000 years, the Council had ruled through the threat of overwhelming force. No enemy had ever possessed weapons that could challenge their technological superiority. Now, in one terrible moment, humanity had proved that even the mightiest empire could be destroyed. But the victory came at a cost that would haunt humanity for generations. The destruction of the hegemony system killed not just Council leaders, but billions of innocent beings who had never participated in the oppression of other species. Artists, scientists, children, ordinary people going about their daily lives, all of them died in the nuclear fire of collapsing stars. The news of the hegemony's destruction spread across the galaxy within hours. Some species cheered, seeing it as justice for centuries of oppression. Others recoiled in horror, viewing humanity as a new threat that might be even worse than the Council. The delicate balance of galactic politics shifted overnight. On Earth, President Mitchell addressed his planet in a somber broadcast. Today, we have shown the galaxy that humanity will not go quietly into extinction. The Galactic Council forced us to choose BTW. 2 years after the destruction of the hegemony system, the galaxy was a place no one recognized. The Galactic Council still existed, but their iron grip on power had been shattered. Dozens of star systems had declared independence, while others formed new alliances or descended into brutal civil wars. The age of galactic unity was over. Admiral Jake Morrison stood before the assembled leaders of the newly formed Terran Federation in the Great Hall of New Geneva Station. The space station had been built in orbit around the glassed remains of New Geneva as a memorial to the 3 million humans who died there. The planet below served as a constant reminder of what the war had cost. The Council has sent a formal request for peace negotiations, Morrison announced to the gathering. His uniform bore the scars of 2 years of constant warfare, burn marks from plasma weapons, a mechanical arm where his left hand used to be, and eyes that had seen too much death. The hall erupted in surprised murmurs. After 24 months of the most brutal war in galactic history, the idea of peace seemed almost impossible to believe. Earth's flag hung alongside those of 37 human colony worlds, and surprisingly, 6 alien species that had chosen to ally with humanity rather than submit to either the Council or the various warlords that had emerged from the chaos. President Mitchell, his hair now completely white from the stress of leading humanity through its darkest hour, leaned forward in his chair. What are their terms? They're asking for a complete ceasefire and negotiations to be held on the neutral world of Kronos. 7, Morrison replied. They've also requested that we limit our territorial expansion while talks are ongoing. General Lisa Barnes, now bearing the title of Supreme Military Commander of the Terran Federation, laughed bitterly. Limit our expansion? They're the ones who started this war by demanding tribute and slaves. The war had cost humanity dearly. Of Earth's original population of 8 billion, nearly 200 million had died in the fighting. Entire fleets had been lost in desperate battles across dozens of star systems. Several human colonies remained under Council occupation, their populations enslaved or worse. But humanity had also achieved something that no species in galactic history had managed. They had forced the Council to the negotiating table. More importantly, they had inspired a galaxy-wide rebellion against Council authority that showed no signs of stopping. Dr. Alex Turner, now director of the Advanced Defense Research Institute, reviewed the latest intelligence reports with a mixture of pride and exhaustion. His hair had gone completely gray during the war, and his hands shook slightly from the stress of creating weapons that could destroy entire star systems. The Council has lost effective control of approximately 40% of their former territory, Turner reported to the Federation leadership. The Zephyrian Liberation Front has established an independent government across 3 sectors. The Murphon Collective has declared themselves a neutral power. Even the Karathi, who were among the Council's most loyal subjects, have begun demanding autonomy. Ambassador Lisa Chen led the human delegation to Kronos the 7th 3 weeks later. The journey through space that had once been controlled by the Council was a sobering experience. Everywhere they looked, they saw the wreckage of the old order. Destroyed space stations, dead worlds, and the debris of countless battles. Kronos 7 itself was a barren world chosen specifically because it held no strategic value to either side. The negotiations would take place in a prefabricated facility built on the planet's surface, with each delegation bringing their own life support and security. Across the negotiating table sat the survivors of the Council's leadership. Council. Speaker Yarden was a reptilian alien whose scales bore scars from a human plasma strike that had nearly killed him during the Battle of Proxima Station. His eyes held a mixture of hatred and grudging respect as he looked at the human representatives. "Your species has committed acts of barbarism that will be remembered for millennia," Yarden began, his voice carrying the weight of ancient authority. "The destruction of the hegemony system alone killed over 20 trillion beings. How do you justify such genocide?" Chen met his gaze steadily. "The same way you justified demanding 10,000 humans as slaves, the same way you justified destroying New Geneva, the same way your people have justified conquering and enslaving entire species for thousands of years." "The Council maintained order," Yarden replied. "What you have created is chaos. Warlords fight over scraps of territory. Pirates raid merchant ships. Entire systems have been abandoned as their populations flee the violence." "Freedom is messy," Chen acknowledged. "But it's still better than the peace of the graveyard that your council offered." The negotiations dragged on for months, with both sides making demands that seemed impossible to meet. The council wanted humanity to surrender their most advanced weapons and accept limits on their expansion. Humanity demanded the complete abolition of the tribute system and recognition of the right of all species to self-determination. Meanwhile, the war continued to rage across the galaxy. Captain Kelly Wright, commanding the UES New Hope, patrolled the borders of human space and witnessed the collapse of the old order firsthand. Her ship was one of the new generation of human vessels, smaller than the massive warships that had fought the Council, but equipped with advanced sensors and diplomatic facilities. "Contact on sensors," reported her first officer, Lieutenant Paul Davis. "It's a refugee convoy, mixed species, about 50,000 civilians fleeing the Andrax system." Wright studied the tactical display. The refugees were traveling in a motley collection of ships, everything from converted cargo haulers to luxury yachts pressed into service as evacuation vessels. Many of the ships showed signs of battle damage. "What happened in the Andrax system?" Wright asked as the refugee convoy approached. "The local council governor declared independence and started a war with 3 neighboring systems," replied the convoy's leader, a Zephyrian captain named Kexron. "When the fighting started, they used cleansing weapons on 2 inhabited planets. We barely escaped with our lives. The collapse of central authority had created dozens of petty tyrants across the galaxy. Former council governors, military commanders, and local strongmen were carving out their own little empires and fighting brutal wars with each other. The chaos was exactly what the council had predicted would happen if their rule was challenged. But Wright also saw signs of hope. The refugee convoy included beings from 7 different species, all working together to protect their families. On several worlds, humans and aliens were forming new governments based on principles of equality and cooperation. The galaxy was learning that there were alternatives to both tyranny and chaos. After 6 months of negotiations, a breakthrough finally came from an unexpected source. The Murphon Collective, which had remained neutral throughout the war, offered to mediate between the humans and the Council. Their proposal was elegant in its simplicity: divide the galaxy into spheres of influence, with neither side claiming authority over the other. The Treaty of Kronos, as it came to be known, established 3 zones within the galaxy. The Council Zone would include their remaining strongholds and any systems that chose to remain under their authority. The Free Zone would include human space and the territories of allied species. The Neutral Zone would be a buffer area controlled by neither side, where trade and diplomacy could flourish. President Mitchell signed the treaty in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. As he put his name to the document, he thought about all the people who had died to make this moment possible. Admiral Morrison, who had been killed in the final battle for Alpha Centauri. Commander Lopez, who had sacrificed herself to save Earth's fleet. Millions of soldiers, sailors, and civilians who had paid the ultimate price for freedom. Today marks the end of one age and the beginning of another, Mitchell said as cameras recorded his words for history. The galaxy will no longer be ruled by a single empire that demands submission from all others. Instead, we enter an era where each species has the right to choose its own destiny. The treaty was not perfect. Large areas of the galaxy remained in chaos, with local warlords fighting each other for control. The Council still controlled 60% of known space and had not abandoned their belief in their right to rule. Tensions between humans and many alien species remained high, with some viewing humanity as liberators and others as dangerous destroyers. But the principle of species sovereignty had been established. Never again would the galaxy accept the rule of a single power that claimed authority over all others. The Treaty of Kronos created a framework for coexistence that, while imperfect, offered hope for a more peaceful future. Dr. Turner, now leading the Galactic Reconstruction Institute, worked to heal the wounds of war. His teams developed new technologies to terraform damaged worlds and assist refugee populations in rebuilding their civilizations. The same genius that had created weapons of mass destruction was now focused on preserving life. "We have a chance to build something better," Turner told the assembled scientists and engineers at the Institute's dedication ceremony. "The old galaxy was ruled by fear and force. The new galaxy can be built on cooperation and mutual respect." As the years passed, the Treaty of Kronos proved to be the foundation for a new galactic order. Trad.